So welcome to the Node.js Technical Steering Committee meeting for April 29th, 2021. We'll follow the agenda, which was in issue 1020 in the TSC repo. Before we start on that, does anybody have any announcements that they'd like to share? Sounds like there aren't any announcements this week, so we will move on to the CPC and board meeting updates. I don't have anything specific to mention on the board front. On the CPC front, I guess worth mentioning is that there is currently the elections for some of the voting members, for non-impact projects and reps for CPC are underway. Those aren't necessarily our direct representatives as the project, but if you have any input or whatever, now would be a good time to give Mary or Joe, who are our CPC representatives, some feedback, because they may be voting in those. Otherwise, there's some working sessions on JavaScript Landia have taken place on sort of the project landscape, what our strategy for what other projects might be in the make sense in the foundation. So those are a couple of interesting things that are going on that just give an FYI if people are interested in getting involved. But that's all I have on that front. So let's move on to the agenda for Node.js nodes. So the first one is add yarn 1.22.5. That we did do a vote. And thanks to Mary for running that vote. Thanks to Mary for running it. And the direction from the vote is that we won't land yarn, but the consensus was that we should explore moving in the direction of Core-Pack and getting that to be part. As we've discussed before, it's not an approval to land the PR as is, but a approval for that's the direction that we think is the right way to go. So we'll work in that context going forward. Is there any other discussion views people want to add on that one? Okay, well, that's good. So we can, I think, close that one out. I'll take the action to add a comment on that specific issue, which was blocking. And then I think the PR can be closed as, we're not gonna land that. Moving on to the next one, TLS improve compliance with shutdown standard remove hacks, number 36111. I looked at the minutes and we agreed that we could remove that from the agenda last week. I seem to have forgotten to remove it from the agenda, so that's why it's still here. So I don't think there's anything to discuss. So moving on to the next one, which is remain default branch from master domain or something similar. So 33.864. That one is sort of a long ongoing effort to move our projects over. I'm not sure I don't think there's been any more progress this week to report unless there's something that somebody wants to mention. Just a call if people do have a few cycles, it would be great if each of us could pull a few, figure out a few repos that we're involved in maybe and feel comfortable helping to move it from towards main as the primary branch. I don't think there's, yeah. So basically that's the ask. And we'll go from there. The main reason why it's an ask to this group is we're really the only ones who can make that change easily. So, we need to be involved.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I guess it's not just as simple as going to some repo and changing the branch. There could be specific intricacies to the certain repos, if I understand correctly.
It really depends on the repository, right? So, in some repositories, Node, we know that there's like automation and tools that may depend on the branch that's being used. So those ones, there's more intricacies. Other ones, there really won't be anything. And for some of those, it depends. Like if I've been involved in them and I know the people in the team, I can feel more comfortable just saying, hey, like we may, we're going to go ahead and do this because I'm part of that community that's using the repo. In other ones, it probably would be just saying, opening an issue saying, hey, I know I'm not active in, say, this translation group, but, I don't think there's any issues. Does anybody have any concern? If not, if there is, let me know. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and change it in a week or something like that.
Yeah, the two main sources of friction are automation, like say like a GitHub action that specifies master rather than head or something like that, or other tooling that does that. And then the other source of friction is the developers who already have forks will need to rename or do some workaround when they're to rebase from the original repository. And GitHub provides those instructions, but getting them out to like the hundreds of people who are doing the website repository, for example, is not simple. And
typically that like in my mind, I'm not sure that'll be too big a hurdle for people. It's more that we make sure that, go ahead.
There's hundreds of people, but there's only a small number of active people, so you may be right.
Right. So that's not where I'm. But my concern is that we make sure it's not a surprise, right? Like if we just go and change it on them, that's not nice. But if we at least give them the heads up that it's coming, they could have an opportunity to, say, oh, wait a sec, this is going to cause me grief. Then when it happens, they'll probably just be fine, right? So it's more about, if one of us isn't involved, just making that issue that says, hey, do you mind if I do this? Because I doubt that in most cases it's going to be an issue for anybody.
Michael, if you want, I'll take minutes so you don't have to.
Okay, sure. Thank you very much. So Dreesh, any other questions? Like it sounds like that you're just wondering, what might make you, what you should do in doing those. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so then we can move on to the next issue, which was 3697, which was migration of core modules to primordials. That one, that is the tracking issue, and we definitely had a discussion last time about that. I'm looking, so I guess, Antoine, you added it, right? So why don't you take the conversation here?
Yeah, so I'm still working on a documentation to document what's safe to do with primordials and what's not. But yeah, no progress to report so far.
Okay, no, that's great. Thanks for the update and thanks for doing that.
I think there's broad agreement that generally, well, maybe I'm mistaken about this, but generally we would like to ideally continue moving to primordials, but do it in a more careful fashion and benchmark hot paths and so on and so forth. And if that's the case, I wonder if this can be removed from the agenda. Just suggesting. Anyway.
I think it's not. I would say yes, maybe after we have that documentation in place, because that was kind of like our concrete action of like, let's get this doc in place, and then because that covers the let's do it more carefully part, right?
Sure. So. It gives us something to show and something to discuss.
Yeah. Okay. The next one is moderation team certification 10114. I know, Rich, you had a plan for that.
My plan was to wait for the chair election to be over. Are you officially our chair for the next year?
There's still a few days. I think it's end of the month that the nominations close. So.
Okay. So once I see the GitHub notification for that closing, I'll open something for this. So you're taking notes. Cool. Go for it. Yeah.
Sorry. While you're talking, I will.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Great. Yeah. So hopefully this will be resolved next week. But I do want to suggest that if anybody has anyone they want to nominate, or want to self-nominate to join the moderation team, let me know, because now's the ideal time to do it. So we're just certifying everybody in one single vote. Yeah, that's all I got.
I think it's also a good time to thank the people who've been involved in doing that moderation work. It's sort of an important unsung hero kind of thing that goes on. I know there's a lot of work that happens there, and just a good time as we recertify people to say also thanks for continuing to do that.
It's a nice little interesting group of people very actively engaged in Node, but otherwise largely, I mean, this isn't true of everybody on there. I mean, I'm on there, Benjamin Brubaum's on there, but largely like not otherwise deeply involved in core. I don't know, in the core repo, but maybe involved in community and other repos. A nice little crossover, and some people who really aren't involved in core in Node.js, project repos at all, really. So it's a really interesting group, and I'm really grateful for the work they do.
Yeah, and thanks. Okay, so the next one is revisit the meeting times 1004. So I know Chalker, you were going to take another look at the numbers after some additional people had completed. I think the goal is let's get it updated for next week. Do you have the data on that?
I'll check that after the meeting, I think.
Okay, so yeah, if you can just paste it into the issue, then
yes,
whatever that says, I propose we just change the next meetings to that and work with it. I guess if there are any concerns, like after we do that, then maybe we can open an issue to discuss those or whatever. But it seems like that would be the way to go, and to make sure we actually do it for next week.
Yeah, every week we did that, we're getting closer to the next daylight savings.
Exactly, so, yeah. And then we got to do it again. So yeah, okay. So we'll look at based on those numbers, we'll move it, and then if there are some serious issues or whatever, we can open an issue to discuss those. But at least we'll have adjusted for the time zone. Okay, so we'll move on to the next one, which is potential stagnation of the Open Issues H1 Bounty Program 654. And I'm going to say we are inching towards resolution. I've been working on, a blog post and approach to that. Did send an email to the TSC a few hours ago, just with the proposal for that. And I'm asking that we just stick around for the private section where, we can I just want to give people an opportunity to have any thoughts on that, if there are any. But yeah, so we're hopefully within, I'd say weeks now of getting that closed out. So if there aren't any questions on that, we can move on to strategic initiatives. I will open those up. So just looking at the initiatives and who we have here to talk to them. So V8 currency, nothing new, I see. Okay, thanks for filling that in. I don't have anything on build resources, and I think that is the only two. Actually, I'm going to go and promote Bethany there. That is the only two that we have people from at this point. So that's all we have on.
We really got to get back to. I'll try to make it a point to prompting people to put these in the issue before the meetings rather than doing them at the meetings, because it just works better. I think.
That does help. Yep. No, that's good. So that's everything that we had on the agenda. I don't know, is there anything else that people would like to discuss or things we should talk about? I guess if not, if everybody could just stick around for a few more minutes, I will stop